After discovering that my husband, the CEO, still couldn't forget his ex-wife, a divorced single mother, I started teaching our son to call him uncle. It happened the night our son had a fever, and his ex called him in the middle of the night asking him to go to her. I touched our son's burning forehead and made him say goodbye. Bye, uncle. Every time, our son hesitated for so long. Until later, my husband finally realized what he owed us. He took the initiative and suggested that we take family photos together. At the entrance of the photography studio, his ex called again, sobbing over the phone. Alexander, can you come pick up Mason from daycare right now? The other kids are making fun of him because he doesn't have a dad. Reluctance crossed my husband's face. He was about to crouch down and explain to our son. This time, without any prompting from me, our son waved goodbye to him. It's okay, uncle. Go be with your son. Mom and I are enough for a family photo. The moment our son said those words, both Alexander Morrison and I froze. He said it smoothly and naturally, as if he had rehearsed the word countless times in his heart. He took my hand and led me step by step toward the photography studio. The family photo session was something Alexander had suggested to make up for missing our son's school event. Our son had been looking forward to it for half a month. I followed him stiffly, feeling as if my heart were being crushed beneath a stone. The suffocating pressure made me want to cry. I discovered Alexander's betrayal by accident. He had gone to celebrate Vanessa's son's birthday, and when he came back, he forgot the tickets in his pocket. 3 tickets to Universal Studios. For our son's 6th birthday, he had wished for the whole family to go to Universal Studios together to see his favorite Minions. Alexander thought it was childish and rejected the idea without hesitation. Yet a few days later, he went with Vanessa's son. I found Vanessa's Instagram post on Alexander's phone. The most magical place has to be visited with the best dad. The photo showed Alexander and Vanessa holding a little boy, the 3 of them together like a family. Vanessa was his first love, divorced and with a child. That night, we had our most explosive fight. I insisted on divorce and on taking our son with me. Alexander accused me of being unreasonable. He asked how I could bear to let our son grow up without a father. He swore to God that he only felt sorry for Vanessa. Seeing our son's obviously frightened face, I bit my lip until it almost bled. I knew that if I forced our son to leave with me, he would never forget Alexander. But I also knew that if it happened once, it would happen a second time, a third time. I didn't want my son to suffer because of his so-called compassion. So I chose another approach. I tricked Alexander into signing the divorce papers. 30 days until the divorce became official. During those 30 days, if Alexander came to his senses, I would pretend nothing had happened for the sake of our son. If not, I would spend those 30 days doing everything I could to help our son become numb to it. Today was day 28. Our son had called Alexander uncle on his own. I felt my son's slightly trembling body, but I wasn't happy. It felt as if 1,000 needles were piercing my heart. As we crossed the street, Alexander finally reacted. He took a few steps after us, wanting to ask our son what was going on. Then Vanessa called again, still with that delicate, sobbing voice. Alexander, where are you? Mason won't stop crying and says he wants his daddy. I can't calm him down. Alexander's steps stopped. He looked at our backs with the phone in his hand and replied, "Okay, I know. I'm on my way." After hanging up, he sent me a message. "Let's talk tonight." Then he turned around and left without hesitation. The roar of a car engine started, then faded into the distance. Our son stopped walking and sank into my arms, his tears soaking my clothes. "Mom, we can't have Daddy anymore. We didn't take the pictures." I took our son straight home. I started packing. While booking plane tickets back to my hometown, Vanessa sent me a video. The setting was another well-known photography studio in the city. Vanessa and Alexander were wearing matching outfits, holding a boy around 5 years old. They posed for the camera. At the end of the video, Vanessa provoked me as usual. "It's just a family photo. Alexander and I can take one anytime." If this had been before, I definitely would have replied to Vanessa's provocation immediately. But now, watching our son carefully organize his toys, I had only one thought. How pointless. I exited the chat and booked 2 tickets to Seattle for the day after tomorrow. Right after I paid, Alexander came home with a strawberry cake. Both our son and I looked at him in surprise. In the past, he hated strawberry cake the most. Because of this, even though our son inherited my crazy love for strawberries, he always chose Alexander's favorite chocolate mousse cake for his birthday. But today, why did he suddenly bring home a strawberry cake? Our son and I looked at each other, both finding it unbelievable. Alexander walked in slowly and saw the open luggage. His expression changed slightly. Mason was crying really hard. I stayed with him a little longer. On the way back, I remembered that both of you love strawberry cake, so I bought one. Why are you packing? Are you going on a trip? I shook my head, then nodded. I guess so. With only 2 days left until the divorce became official, I didn't want any unexpected complications. Hearing my words, Alexander seemed to let out a sigh of relief. Before continuing, he said, "The photography studio called me and said you didn't show up. I rescheduled the appointment. How about tomorrow? I absolutely won't back out this time." He crouched in front of our son and said it very seriously. Our son paused while organizing his toys. He looked at him, then at me, as if he were torn, or as if he no longer dared to believe. I noticed our son's hesitation, and my heart softened. Okay. After all, it would be the last time anyway. After I agreed, our son's eyes lit up immediately. He grabbed his toys and ran to his room. After he left, I continued packing. Alexander walked over to me. He struggled before speaking. By the way, about our son calling me uncle today. My heart skipped a beat. I looked at him. Alexander crouched down and placed the strawberry cake beside me. His voice was helpless but affectionate. "Samantha, I know what you're thinking. You think I've been too good to Vanessa and that I've been neglecting you and our son, right? But I swear, I only feel sorry for Vanessa. She's a single mother. I just don't want her to suffer too much." He took my hand and solemnly placed it over his heart. "Give me a little more time. I promise I'll handle things with Vanessa and her son properly. I won't let you and our son be treated unfairly." I stared at him. I could barely remember the last time he had looked at me so seriously. Maybe it was at our wedding, in the spotless chapel. He held my hand and promised to treat me well for the rest of his life. Or maybe it was the day our son was born. In the hospital delivery room, he carefully held our son in his arms and trembled as he kissed my forehead. Then he said, "Samantha, I will never let you or our son suffer any injustice." Thinking of those past moments, I remained silent for a long time. In the end, I decided not to tell him about the divorce. "Where did you put that limited edition Lego set I bought for our son last time?" "It's in the study closet. Vanessa says Mason has really been into Legos lately. I'll take it over for him to play with for a few days." After speaking, Alexander went to the study, found the Lego set, grabbed his car keys, and rushed out the door. The door closed. Alexander's figure disappeared. I looked silently at the door for a long time. Then I finished the sentence I hadn't completed. "Actually, our son and I don't need you anymore." There were only 2 days left until we left. At midnight, after finally finishing packing, I lay exhausted on the bed. My phone lit up. It was a message from Alexander. Mason loved the Lego. I spent the whole evening helping him build it. Vanessa specifically asked me to thank you. At midnight, my husband was thanking me on behalf of another woman. The corner of my mouth pulled faintly, too speechless even to laugh, but I was too tired to be angry. The result was already decided anyway. I opened the chat and casually replied, "There's no need to thank me. I didn't give it to her. Also, that Lego was our son's favorite birthday gift. He has been waiting for you to have time to build it with him." After sending that message, I turned off my phone and closed my eyes to sleep. I didn't care about Alexander on the other end, whose expression changed when he saw the message. The next morning, at 8, Alexander came home unusually early. He took off his coat as he walked in and saw several suitcases neatly arranged in the living room. He froze. "Do you need to pack this much for a trip?" he asked without even letting go of his coat, walking toward the bedroom with visible panic. I was helping our son get dressed and didn't look back. "We're going far away." Hearing this, he immediately looked at our son. Only after receiving a confirming nod from him did his expression relax. He put his coat aside and took out 3 tickets to Universal Studios. "Weren't you upset because I didn't take our son to Universal Studios?" "I bought tickets for today. The 3 of us can go together." He showed the tickets in front of me and our son, as if presenting his momentary indulgence. I wondered if I had misheard. Almost a month had passed since that incident, and only now did he think of it. But then I thought of the series of unread messages on my phone. When I woke up this morning, I suddenly understood. So this was compensation. I said nothing and kept focusing on dressing our son. But our son was incredibly excited. His eyes sparkled as he stared at me. "Mom, I want to go." My eyes curved into a smile. Before I could speak, I heard Alexander stammer. "But if you want to go, there's one condition. Vanessa found out that we're taking family photos today, and she's worried Mason will be upset if he hears about it. So about the family photo, let's do it another time." As he said this, his expression was full of guilt. Our son froze. The smile in his eyes visibly faded little by little. "I see." He slowly lowered his head and said nothing else. His eyes turned red, but Alexander didn't notice. He continued. "It's just this small request from Vanessa. I thought about it, and it shouldn't be a big deal. We're only postponing the photos this time. There will always be another time. What do you think?" He didn't know that our son and I were leaving tomorrow. This was his last chance. But neither our son nor I said anything. We simply nodded silently. "Fine. Okay." Alexander let out a sigh of relief. A visible smile appeared on his face, as if a burden had been lifted. "Then I'll tell Vanessa right now. 3 this afternoon, we'll meet at Universal Studios." After speaking, he got up to leave. When he reached the door, he turned back. "Honey, Ethan, you're wonderful." Our son and I said nothing. After he left, our son jumped off the bed and pulled a backpack he had prepared from the closet. "Mom, I don't want to see Uncle anymore. Can we leave early?" I looked at my 6-year-old son. He stood there, a small and lonely figure in the middle of a room that used to be his sanctuary, clutching his faded blue backpack. There were no tears in his eyes. No tantrum. Only a chilling, terrible clarity no child should possess. "Yes, sweetheart," I whispered. My voice trembled, but found its anchor in his unwavering gaze. "Can we leave right now?" I took out my phone and opened the airline app. It cost a small fortune to change our departure to the 11:30 a.m. flight from JFK that same day. But money had lost all meaning. The only currency I cared about now was distance. Distance from this house. Distance from the suffocating air. Distance from the man who had systematically dismantled our son's heart piece by piece. I moved mechanically, closing the last of the suitcases. I didn't take much. Clothes, important documents, and Ethan's favorite books. I left behind the designer bags Alexander had bought me for anniversaries. The expensive jewelry that served as apologies for late nights at the office. They felt contaminated. I walked into the kitchen. Sunlight filtered through the large windows, illuminating the spotless granite countertops. There, like a grotesque monument to a fractured family, sat the strawberry cake in its plastic container. Beside it, I placed my wedding ring. The diamond, once a symbol of a promise in an immaculate chapel, felt completely foreign against my skin. It clicked softly against the marble. Next to the ring, I left a plain white envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, the final instruction letter for my lawyer. Tomorrow was day 30. The cooling-off period would expire, and my lawyer would file the final decree with the county clerk. Alexander had blindly signed the initial dissolution papers 28 days earlier. His mind had been so occupied with Vanessa's late-night crises that he hadn't even read the headings of the financial restructuring documents I had placed in front of him. "Mom?" Ethan tugged at the hem of my sweater. We're going to be okay. I knelt down to his height. I smoothed a strand of hair away from his forehead. We're going to be more than okay, Ethan. We're going to be happy. I ordered a luxury car service. As the black SUV pulled out of our driveway, I didn't look back. I took out my phone, blocked Alexander's number, blocked his email, and disabled all my social media accounts. With one tap, Alexander Morrison ceased to exist in my digital world. Rain began to fall softly against the windows as we merged onto the highway toward the airport. I hugged Ethan, resting my chin on the top of his head. He fell asleep to the rhythmic hum of the tires against the asphalt. His small hands relaxed, finally releasing the tension he had carried for months. Alexander's perspective. 2:45 p.m. that day. Alexander checked his Rolex. The sun beat down on the concrete at Universal Studios, casting hard shadows. He stood near the entrance of the Minion Mayhem ride, holding 3 VIP express passes. He felt a rare, self-satisfied smile form on his lips. He had fixed it. Sure, he had canceled the photo session, but this was Universal Studios. What kid wouldn't prefer this? He checked his phone. Dua samay payam may. He dialed Samantha's number. The number you have called is not available. Frowning, he tried again. The same automated voice. He opened their chat. His last few messages detailing where to park had only one gray checkmark. Undelivered. Probably just underground parking, he muttered to himself, adjusting his sunglasses. His phone vibrated in his palm. The caller ID showed Vanessa. Alexander Sahil. A sudden, unusual flash of irritation brushed his chest. He answered. Vanessa, I can't talk right now. Samantha and Ethan should be arriving any second. Alexander. Vanessa's voice was breathless, tinted with her signature fragile sob. Mason threw his Lego set. It shattered everywhere. He's crying so hard he threw up. Please, Alexander, he keeps asking for you. He says you're the only one who can put it back together. A month ago, Alexander would have felt a surge of protective adrenaline. He would have imagined Mason's tear-soaked face and felt the intoxicating thrill of being needed, of being the undisputed savior. But at this moment, standing in front of a giant yellow minion, surrounded by parents carrying children on their shoulders, a strange emptiness echoed in his stomach. Vanessa, Alexander said, his voice tighter than usual. I spent 4 hours building that set with him last night. I'm waiting for my son. I can't go. But Alexander, give him an iPad, Vanessa. I have to go. He hung up. He looked at the screen, surprised by his own harshness. But the surprise was quickly swallowed by a rising tide of panic. It was 3:30 p.m. He called Samantha again. Nothing. He called his sister. Blocked. He called the house. It rang until voicemail picked up. Cold sweat slid down the back of his neck. He remembered the suitcases in the living room. We're going far away, she had said, without looking at him. He remembered Ethan's silent, devastating nod. Alexander ran. He shoved past a group of teenagers, ignoring their shouts, and sprinted through City Walk toward the parking lot. He broke every speed limit on the drive back to the suburbs. His heart hammered violently against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat of no, no. He parked his car in the driveway, not even bothering to close the door as he rushed up the front steps. He shoved the key into the lock and pushed open the heavy mahogany door. Samantha, Ethan. The silence of the house hit him like a physical blow. It wasn't just silence. It was dead. The subtle hum of life, the scent of Samantha's vanilla perfume, the crash of Ethan's toys, the sound of the TV in the background. All of it was completely absent. He walked into the living room. The suitcases were gone. He stumbled into the kitchen, and his breath caught. Perfectly centered on the marble island was the strawberry cake. Right beside it, gleaming under the pendant lights, was Samantha's platinum wedding ring. Alexander's hands began to tremble violently as he reached for the white envelope beside the ring. He tore it open. It wasn't an angry letter. It wasn't a plea for him to change. It was a cold, formal legal document from a high-profile family law firm. Notice of final dissolution of marriage. Expiration of mandatory 30-day waiting period. As stipulated by the signed agreement dated. Alexander couldn't breathe. His eyes scanned the legal language. Full physical and legal custody granted to the mother. No objection filed by the respondent. 30 days, he whispered to the empty room. The realization hit him with the force of a freight train. The papers she had asked him to sign a month ago. The ones she said were only to transfer some stock options into a trust for Ethan. He had signed them while on the phone with Vanessa, dismissing Samantha because Mason had had a nightmare. He collapsed onto the kitchen stool, burying his face in his hands. A primal, agonized sound tore from his throat, echoing against the high ceilings. He had spent the last 29 days comforting another man's son, playing house with a ghost from his past, while his wife meticulously dismantled his reality and his son learned to call him uncle. He pulled out his phone with trembling, desperate fingers. He called his lawyer, his private investigator, anyone. But as he looked at the rotting strawberry cake, he knew it was already too late. 2 years later, Seattle, Washington. The breeze from Puget Sound was cool, carrying the scent of pine and salt water through the open windows of my studio. I wiped a charcoal smudge from my cheek with the back of my wrist and stepped back to assess the drafting table. The architectural rendering of the new boutique hotel in downtown Seattle was finally complete. "Mom!" The front door of the studio burst open, and a breathless 8-year-old whirlwind came running in. Ethan was covered in mud, a huge smile splitting his face. He held up a tarnished silver trophy. "We won." Coach Parker said my assist in the second half was the best pass of the season. I dropped my charcoal pencil and knelt down, hugging him tightly despite the damp dirt clinging to his soccer uniform. "I knew you could do it, sweetheart. I'm incredibly proud of you." Coach Parker, a kind-eyed former college athlete who ran a local youth league, appeared at the doorway, smiling warmly. "He played like a champion today, Samantha. You've got a natural leader on your hands." "Thank you, Michael, for everything," I said. "Anytime. See you at practice Tuesday, buddy," Michael said, ruffling Ethan's hair before waving goodbye. Ethan ran to the sink to wash his hands, chattering excitedly about the game. I watched him, my heart swelling with fierce, protective warmth. The transition to Seattle hadn't been easy. The first few months were marked by sudden night terrors for Ethan and a lingering, suffocating exhaustion for me. But I threw myself into my work, using my background in interior architecture to launch a boutique design firm. Seattle was kind to us. It offered anonymity, rain that felt like baptism, and a community that didn't know our bruised versions. Ethan had blossomed. The quiet, anxious boy who used to bite his lip until it bled while waiting for a father who never showed up had disappeared. In his place was a vibrant, confident child who laughed loudly, made friends easily, and loved fiercely. He hadn't said Alexander's name in more than 18 months. That same night, after a celebratory dinner with pizza and a real strawberry cake, I tucked Ethan into bed. "Mom," he asked, his eyes heavy with sleep. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm really glad it's just us." I smiled and kissed him. "Me too, Ethan. More than anything." Thousands of miles away, in a sprawling and silent mansion in Florida, Alexander Morrison sat in the dark. A glass of amber liquid sweated onto a mahogany coaster. His life had become unrecognizable. The honeymoon phase with Vanessa had shattered violently barely 3 months after Samantha left. Once Vanessa moved into the house, her helpless single mother act evaporated. It was replaced by a demanding, overbearing reality. Mason, lacking boundaries and discipline, ran wild. The breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday. Alexander had returned home from work, his company's stock plunging because of his lack of focus, only to find Mason in what had once been Ethan's bedroom. The boy had found a box of Ethan's old things that Alexander had hidden away, a shrine of memories he couldn't bring himself to let go of. Mason was happily stomping on a clay handprint Ethan had made in kindergarten, smashing the painted ceramic into powder. Vanessa stood in the doorway, sipping a martini, and said indifferently, "Oh, Alexander, don't be angry, he's just playing. You can always make another one if we have a baby." Alexander stared at the shattered handprint, the only piece of his son he had left, and something inside him snapped. The veil fell. He didn't see a helpless woman he needed to save. He saw a parasite. He saw the exact and excruciating price of his own vanity. He threw them out that night. Vanessa's tears and sobs, which used to manipulate his emotions like a master puppeteer, suddenly sounded like nails on a chalkboard. For the past year and a half, Alexander had invested his vast resources into finding Samantha. She had covered her tracks perfectly, using a newly formed LLC to rent her house and keeping her assets meticulously protected by her aggressive legal team. But Alexander's private investigators were relentless. His phone vibrated on the coffee table, lighting up the dark room. It was an email from Shane, the lead investigator. Subject: S. Harris and E. Harris. Location confirmed. Alexander dropped his glass. It shattered against the hardwood floor, but he didn't care. He opened the email. Attached was a photograph taken from across the street. It was Samantha. She was standing outside a brick-and-mortar design studio in Seattle, laughing as she handed a cup of coffee to a tall man in athletic clothes. Beside her was a boy. Alexander's breath stopped in his throat. Ethan was so tall. He looked healthy, radiant, free. At the bottom of the email was an address. Alexander didn't pack a suitcase. He grabbed his wallet, his keys, and drove straight to the airport. It was Saturday morning, the kind of crisp, bright Pacific Northwest day where the sky is a piercing, impossible blue. I was setting up a small exhibition of my company's recent projects at a local community art fair in the park. Ethan sat a few feet away on a picnic blanket, deeply absorbed in building a complex spaceship with a huge bucket of Legos. Need a hand with that easel? I turned and smiled. Michael, Ethan's soccer coach, was jogging toward me, dressed in a sweater and casual jeans. Over the past year, Michael and I had become close friends. There was a mutual respect between us, quiet and steady. A slow-burning connection I was finally allowing myself to explore. I've got it, but you can help me hang this rendering if you want, I laughed. Hey, Coach Michael, Ethan shouted, waving a Lego astronaut in the air. Captain Ethan, your spaceship's looking good, buddy. Michael replied effortlessly, lifting the heavy wooden frame for me. I was adjusting the level of the frame when I felt it. A sudden, visceral drop in air pressure. A tingling at the back of my neck. Like the instinct of prey sensing a predator in the tall grass. Slowly, I turned. 10 meters away, at the edge of the paved path, stood Alexander. For 1 second, the entire world stopped spinning. The background noise of the fair, the acoustic guitarist, the chatter of families, the barking of dogs, faded into a dull roar. He looked terrible. The sharp, arrogant CEO who used to wear tailored Italian suits like armor was gone. He looked 10 years older. There were deep, dark hollows beneath his eyes, and his shoulders slumped, carrying an invisible, crushing weight. He wasn't looking at me. His bloodshot eyes were fixed entirely on the boy on the picnic blanket. He took one trembling step forward. Then another. Ethan, Alexander called out, his voice hoarse, broken, a sound scraped from the deepest part of a ruined soul. Ethan paused. He put down the Lego brick he was holding and looked up, squinting slightly against the sun. I froze. My heart beat frantically against my ribs. Michael noticed the change in my posture and immediately stepped closer to me, frowning as he looked at the approaching stranger. I raised a hand, silently telling Michael to wait. I needed to see this. I needed to know whether the ghost of Alexander Morrison still had any power over my son. Alexander fell to his knees at the edge of the blanket. He didn't care about the mud soaking into his expensive pants. He stretched out a trembling hand, hovering only a few inches from Ethan's shoulder, terrified to touch him. Terrified he would disappear like a mirage. Ethan, buddy, it's me. I'm Dad. Tears ran openly down Alexander's face, tracing the stubble on his cheeks. I've missed you so much. God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Ethan looked at the crying man kneeling before him. He didn't flinch. He didn't shrink in fear. He simply tilted his head, his expression calm, curious, and devastatingly distant. Ethan looked past Alexander and found my eyes. "Mom." Ethan's voice was clear, ringing through the silent space between us. "Uncle Alexander is crying." Alexander recoiled physically, as if he had been shot in the chest. A harsh gasp escaped his lips. "No, no, Ethan, please. Please don't call me that. I'm your father. I'm your dad." Ethan looked back at Alexander. His small forehead wrinkled with genuine confusion. "But you didn't want to be my dad. You wanted to be Mason's dad, remember? You wanted to take pictures with him. I was wrong." Alexander sobbed, burying his face in his hands. His shoulders shook violently. "I was so stupid. I was blind. She fooled me. I swear I didn't mean to lose you. I left her, Ethan. I kicked them out. Now it's just me. I came to take you home." Ethan picked up his Lego spaceship, carefully securing a wing that had come loose. He looked at Alexander with the profound and simple logic only a child possesses. "I am home," Ethan said softly. He pointed to me, then to the small house visible on the hill overlooking the park. "Mom is my home." Alexander let out a sound of pure agony. He lunged forward, desperate to hug Ethan. But before he could make contact, a shadow fell over them. I stepped between Alexander and my son. I looked at the man I had once loved with every fiber of my being. The man for whom I had given birth to a child. The man who had reduced me to a begging, crying shell. Looking at him now, kneeling in the dirt, I searched inside myself for anger. I searched for revenge. I found nothing. Only pity. And an overwhelming, beautiful apathy. "Stand up, Alexander," I said. My voice wasn't raised. It was ice cold and soft. Alexander looked at me, his eyes wide and pleading. "Samantha, Samantha, please. I'm begging you. I'll do anything. I'll give up the company. We can move anywhere. Just give me one chance to fix this. Give me one chance to be his father." "You lost the right to that title a long time ago," I said calmly. "The divorce is final. You gave up your parental rights when you couldn't be bothered to read the documents you signed because you were too busy playing savior to another woman's family. Now you are nothing to us. You're a biological footnote." "You tricked me," he shouted, a flash of the old defensive Alexander breaking through the despair. "You trapped me with those papers." "I gave you exactly what you asked for," I replied, unwavering. "I gave you 30 days. 30 days to look at your son, 30 days to prioritize us, just once. You chose Mason, you chose Vanessa, every single time. The papers only made it legal." Alexander stared at me. The fight drained completely from his eyes as the absolute truth of my words hit him. There was no Vanessa to blame. There was no trick. There was only the mirror of his own choices reflecting the monster he had become. "Please," whispered a broken man clinging to dust. "He's my blood. If you ever come near him again," I said, my voice dropping into a deadly calm register. "If you ever hire another private investigator to track my movements, I will file a restraining order. I will drag you through the courts, and I will make sure the press knows exactly what kind of man the great CEO Alexander Morrison really is. Do you understand me?" Alexander looked past me, trying to catch Ethan's gaze. But Ethan wasn't even looking at him. Ethan had turned toward Michael, holding up his completed spaceship. "Look, coach, it's ready to fly." Ethan smiled brightly. Michael smiled gently, keeping a protective stance near the blanket. "Looks like it can go anywhere in the universe, buddy." Alexander watched the exchange and saw the exact moment his heart finally broke beyond repair. He realized that the space he had vacated had not remained empty. Life had continued. The world had kept turning, and it had left him behind. Slowly, agonizingly, Alexander rose from the mud. He looked at me with dead eyes, completely devoid of light. He didn't say another word. There were no words left. He turned around and began to walk away. I watched his retreating figure as he disappeared into the weekend market crowd. Just another stranger fading into the background of our lives. I released a long, slow breath. The tension melted from my shoulders, floating away into the Seattle breeze. "Are you okay?" Michael asked softly, stepping closer to my side. I turned and looked at my son, who was making spaceship noises, completely carefree, safe, and happy. The sun broke through the gray clouds, casting a warm golden glow over the park. The suffocating weight that had lived in my chest for years was completely gone. I smiled. A real, radiant smile that reached all the way to my eyes. "Yes," I said, turning back to my drawing easel. "I've never been better."